Cool. Let's take a look at this file. I'm presuming this is Brady stuff. They're all pretty much the same material, I presume. So I'm just going through the one asset. Whoever fixed this model up, it looks really cool. The one thing that I did just have to do, and I realized this was a scene for demonstration purposes, so it was all laid out and stuff, which is cool. Just make sure that you keep your files in the middle of the scene and that it's all, neatly laid out. Also, that your files are, or your objects, or at least have their scales applied. That obviously has a big impact on everything, specifically your modifiers and to some degree the lighting and shading as well. Okay, so I think I'll just give you basic feedback on what you've done here. I just want to see if there's anything else in the other scenes, in the other materials that are very different. It seems like these are a little bit more conventional, what you've done over here. So in fact, let's just look at both of those then. So that has, see this one, just because there's less other objects in it as well. So the big thing, I think, is if you're doing objects with similar materials, you can have one shader that basically you can apply to all of them and then just tweak them further for that specific object. Okay, so if we render this out, what it looks like now is this in cycles. Okay, and I'll just go through all the different materials you currently have on them, just so we can, see what you have done, see where there are mistakes or where you can improve on stuff, and where we where you could do things differently. And then I'll just quickly go through like a run through of how I would approach doing something like this, just so that you guys can all see that as well. So this specific material, is it this one? No, it's not this one. You've got so many. You guys should all also preferably name your shaders, just so that we know what they are. And you've got many. Just if we, for instance, let's just get rid of everything else in the scene, and then also delete the okay, so it's just that, and let's just look at the Blender file section, the orphan data, and just delete all the other stuff that's not being used. So you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not being used, just so we can clearly see. Okay, this should be fun. You can see how many materials there are. Okay, so these two, it's only, well, it's quite a lot, but there are a lot that seem very similar. Okay, let's go through each of these quickly. Don't know what that's doing there. Weird. Okay. So this specific one. Let me also just do this. This will make it a bit easier. View layer, and make a new render collection. And then when we want to just isolate one object for actually looking at it, we can just say move to that collection and hide the others. That way we're only looking at this object. Otherwise, just isolating it doesn't actually work anymore. Okay, so this has got two materials on. Let's just see. And a mirror modifier, that's good. Subdivision's not doing anything, but would render, so just be careful of that because it's going to render out like that. Let's also just put our mirror modifier first, and then the bevel, then the subdivision. Okay, then we can do Let's leave it on there, because if we do the shader, it's going to make a difference. Okay, so on here, I just want to check, because you've got two shaders, but nothing's using that first one. So if I go into edit mode and say select, it'll show the faces that are actually been used. Okay, so let's delete that one since it's not been used. And then just go through this. Okay, so each of your materials, you should, I think, just spend a little bit more time on getting one going and work consistently to get that on multiple objects. Okay, so this material, I think there's a few just fundamental differences or different approaches that we can take to doing this. Okay, so what you basically, you've got two materials, which are different colors, that you are blending using an HDRI map, which is a little unconventional. Which, granted, its image, I suppose, it's doing something if you crush it. Which you're then getting to that. Okay, so you're blending literally between two different materials there. And then what's a little strange is then you're basically putting just an image that isn't going into a material itself. So this is literally just emission color pixels, basically. And you're mixing between those, but more so the material than the actual shaders. So the lighting and that kind of thing isn't really going to do much on that. Okay, so ideally this would have to go into a material, be it a diffuse or whatever, which would then drive that so that we still get the effect of lighting and all of that. Okay, and also the principal shader is something you should rather use than just diffuse shaders, since there you have no specular or reflection or anything of roughness of that kind. But let's look at some of the other things as well, just some of the other materials. Okay, so I just want to see. So this material I'm actually going to just rename redo, just so that we can see the other objects that have it on as well. Okay, so here you've got the same thing. Okay, so they also redo. You've only got that material on a lot of these. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not sitting with lots of different shaders still. Okay, so there you have something. Let's move that into our render partition, so we can take a look at it over there, and that one can go back into our bookshelf. So if we undo that, okay, so let's look at this material, which is set up firstly not using any of those. Okay, that's the only thing going to the material output. Okay, you're also not using that one. Okay, so let's see what this is. Okay, so already there's not much going on here, but there's more going on than the previous one. So you can see, because it's going into a shader, there is some specular. The roughness is up. It's up a lot. And you've got a bit of a bump going on. Bump's not doing anything for you at the moment, as you can see there. Okay, so the way you've connected the bump is a little incorrect. You have your alpha map, which is simply just a white image going into the height, so it's not doing anything. Also, filmic log is the color space is not the one you want to use. For a bump map, you'd probably set it to non-color. Okay, so that would then get rid of all the color pixels, basically. It's weird that it still has color though. But anyway, so that's not doing anything for you, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, so then in essence, all that we have on this one is that going into the principal shader with roughness in the specular set. Okay, which isn't wrong. But let's move on. Okay, just to before we go on, just to see what else, if anything, there is that we can do. Okay, so that one's and that one. Okay, so it's just really those two shaders. Then over here you've got something which is interesting. Okay, and that's for those little hook shelby thingies, which are really cool, by the way. It's nice detail. And there's all. Let's move it into there. Move that back into the bookshelf, and let's look at these. Okay, so interesting. Okay, so first of all, it's going into a metallic. Okay, so you've got a base color, and then you've got basically that switching between mm, basically saying that the white areas are going to be treated as a metal shader and the black areas as a dielectric shader or just a normal shader. Um, so that's also a little strange. Generally speaking, you would have, you can have black and white images in there, which is great for if you have like a metal surface with paint chips. So you don't want the paint chips to be treated as, or a painted metal surface with paint chips, and then the chips would then be metallic, so they'd be black, and then the white bits would be, or other way around, I think. The chips would be white and the rest would be black. Okay. Um, and then further, it's basically just specular roughness. That's not doing anything just because there's no actual subsurface on here. So it's interesting. I don't know what it's supposed to be though. Okay, so it's a pattern that's going into there. Um, so I think these can also be more. I mean, you've got a interesting pattern at least. What it's doing though, I'm not entirely sure. It's using a texture as a vector input is. I've never actually seen someone do that. I'm not sure what the desired effect is, but it is what it is. Okay. Um, I initially thought you were going for like metal chunks inside there that were like bronze, looking at the color. Um, I think that's it for the bookshelf. Okay, so let's just put this back on. Mm, has everything got that material now? Let me just stop rendering. That's bizarre. Because that's not actually set to do that at all. There, it's glitched out a little bit. Ah, that hasn't. That's actually what it. Oh, you see, it's sharing all of those, and this was set to filmic log previously, and so it was much darker, I think. Yeah, and that's what it was. Okay, regardless. Okay, so I think your approach to texturing feels a little like you're not sure what you're doing. Okay, and I think it's supposed to be a lot easier. Okay, and there's lots of tools and stuff and lots of plugins that make it really simple. Okay, so first of all, I just want to show you a couple of things with regards to texturing, which will definitely help. Okay, because this isn't cheating, this is just using a resource. So first of all, Polygon, as you know, is Andrew Price's texture site. And I'm just going to sign out just so you can see what all um, you can get for free off the site. So if you just go to refine by free, there's plenty of, as you can see, free textures. Really good ones too. So if we were to, for instance, look for a nice wood one, so if you mark the free flag and then say wood, these are all free wooden textures which you can go and download. Okay, so for instance, that one, Find Arc 4. Okay, I think I already have downloaded it since it is free. Okay, so the thing with these is they come with all the maps that you need. It's a PBR shader. It's set up really well. These, I think it's actually a floor, but it's not actually so. No, it's not a floor. Okay, and then also on top of that, there are a lot of free um, overlays. What do they call them? Surface imperfections here. Okay, not a lot, but they're enough. So there's some dirt wipes. There's some, smudges. And there's some fingerprints. Okay, so those are all free. Um, and then the last thing, there's a plugin for Blender. I don't know where it is. I mean, very cool stuff that you can do. Very simple to do as well. Not there. So there's a plugin for Blender that you can download. Help. Blender. And then over using plugins. You can go through these tutorials, by the way. They're very good as well. But it's pretty much what I'm going to be showing you now. And, well, to a certain degree. I'm sure they're going to do a much better job than I would. Okay, so not there. Somewhere. Where is it? Internal information. Tools and add-ons. There we go. Okay. Polygon Material Converter add-on for Blender. Okay. Download that and download the free materials. Okay. Then what you can do is in Blender, once you've installed it, there it is. You navigate to your folder where you have your materials, which mine are all in here. Well, some of them are in here. Then, and once again, this isn't cheating. You're perfectly allowed to do this. Where's your file? So many blenders open. Okay, so here we go. So if your objects, let's just start off with, let's keep all of them just the same material. So let's just go delete. Oh, that's silly. Just select one object. Okay, then I'm just going to delete the materials on it. Okay, so what you then do is you navigate to your folder where you have your textures. Okay, you go into the folder. So there's one. The free ones are different ones, number 4. But anyway, so if it's wood, navigate to the folder where all of them are. Okay, it's easier that way, like to still have them in separate folders than to just have the images in one file, because then loading takes quite a while. Say accept. It'll then realize that those are one texture set. You say load material. You say apply selected thing to thing, and what you're going to get is the loaded thing, the whole texture built the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so just to go through this very quickly, I'm just going to select all of these. Let's just hide the sunlight, or even better, just select the audio with the light off. Okay, so select all of those, just select that one, Control L, materials. Okay, so that would then go and apply that same material on all of those objects. Okay, so now if you render, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so the UVs still need to be scaled a bit. The normal's a bit sharp, but it sets it up for you. Okay, and sets it up correctly for you so that you can get the results that you need. So let's just make the bump a little bit less immediately, because that's very hectic. There we go, that's much better already. Okay, wood, done. Okay, but the thing is that don't stop now. Okay, now you can go and add in all of your detail. Okay, so this is like the same approach that you would use in Substance Painter, where you load a material onto a thing. Okay, so this is the equivalent of Substance Painter, and then you would go and apply scratches or dirt or whatever that is to it. Okay, but just quickly to go through this. Okay, that is just the diffuse color image. Okay, that's plugged directly into the base color. Okay, then it gives you a reflection map. Okay, so this is going to basically pixelate. So I don't know if you can see in the actual stream. There's supposed to be a little bit more detail in there. Okay, so the reflection controls the specular. Okay, and there's some nodes just to process that a little bit, and the gloss controls the roughness. Okay, it's a little counterintuitive, but believe it or not, that's how it works. You would think the reflection, I don't know why, but I would think the R and the R makes sense. I don't know. Okay, but anyway, so there you can see a little bit better. Okay, and then you have your displacement, which is a bump map. Okay, which goes into the height bump, and your normal, which goes into normal map, and then into the normal. Okay, now the only map that stays on RGB color space is the color. All of the rest, all of these get set to non-color. Okay, so all of these, the black and white ones are normal, all of those non-color. Okay, and then from there, all of them are controlled by the scale of the texture is controlled over there. Okay, so there you don't have to set anything. That you can honestly just like bundle up into one thing if you really wanted to. You could select all of those, and you can say Control G and group that and call this wood. Okay, and then tab to go back, and then basically, oh, that's not ideal. Let's undo that. Let's just include then that as part of it. I don't like the fact that that's happening. It'd be nice to have that out here, but regardless, you could if you wanted to. I don't think it's actually necessary. It's just it'll neaten things up. What you could rather do is just make a little label. Damn it. Okay. Okay. Anyway, so what I was saying is you can then probably just pop this into a box. How do you make a box? You go layout, frame, and then you can scale your frame and say wood, wood. Set the color. Wood is brown. And then all of those, you drag them just basically onto it, I think. And you'll see your wood. It lost its name, but anyway. Wood. Nice and neat and tidy. Okay, so now we can also see, just without even going through that, where is texture checkerboard? Okay, so just look at the UVs. So the UVs are all scaled. Okay, so then none of them, those should be squares. Somewhat like, almost like that. Okay, now the easiest, honestly, the easiest way to do this, unfortunately, it's really pretty straightforward. But to go into edit mode, select everything, and say Smart UV Project. What that'll do is lay it out for you. Okay, let's just try that again. That's supposed to not do it. Smart UV Project. Stretch UV bounds must be off. Okay. Let's just open this. It's supposed to be a lot easier. Why is that scaled? That shouldn't be scaled at all. Is the... That's bizarre. Hang on. Obviously, this won't work when I try and show everyone how to do it. Okay, let's just make sure. Don't know why. Oh, sorry, my bad. In here, this obviously needs to have the UV plugged into it. UV map, UV map. There we go. That's what it's supposed to do. Okay. So that will very quickly and as nicely as it can unwrap it. If it still gives issues after it's like over there, then let's see if we can choose one of the others. I'm guessing that's because of this. Why is the UV just messing up the... Okay, well in that case, what we can do to fix that is just add an extra HQ seal on there. I think. There we go. Okay, it was thinking too much. Okay, so that's the best way to go about doing it, honestly. So let's just quickly do it for all of them. If you say UV project, and then we'll just have to scale them so that they're all kind of the same texture space. Just make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the ones that definitely need it more. That's not working, is it? Okay, if it doesn't work, then you have to go and unwrap. Okay, that's cool. Then to the shelves. And the shelves, if they're all the same, let's just go and merge them. Okay, so the goal is to get those almost all the same size. So it's only the thing at the top now. See, so they're all more or less the same. So just this at the top. So let's just quickly unwrap this. Okay, and that's pretty... Or you could probably do a cubic projection, but let's just go... Ah, damn it. Mark scene. Unwrap. Okay, that should be fine. Obviously we can still work on a further arrow in these things. Again, I'm just going to merge all of them. But I think the UVs are fine. A little bit smaller, but if you really want to fix that. Okay, whatever. Something like that should be fine. Okay, so there you can see nicely unwrapped. Now let's go back to the shader. Okay, so render. Okay, so there we have it, nicely unwrapped. Everything seems right scale, more or less. Now, either we can take this as one of two things. That some of them we do have to go and rotate the UV so that the grain of the wood's going the right way, like the leaves, so that they're going upright. So just so it's going along the length of things, which makes more sense. Otherwise, it seems like it's like a veneer, which, you know, isn't bad either. But let's do that quickly. So just go through those and just go make that point. If it overlaps, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you can go and put it back if you want to, but it's literally not going to make a difference. Okay, so that one, it's probably going to be easier if we just do it in here. Yeah. Okay, so that one. I don't know what I did there. Something changed. I think I just unwrapped it by mistake. Okay. Um, I think that's cool. Okay, let's just move this. This is not matching up. Okay, so obviously that thing's not going to have wood. So let's just delete that material. And let's go new and just give it like a metallic. Okay, so specular does nothing when a metallic is enabled, as you can see there. Okay, so let's do that, and then roughness down, and we can decide what material it is. It could be anything. Make it bronzy. Okay, it's going to rain. Okay, so that's literally just the first layer. Okay, so now what I tend to do is, um, you know, add a little bit more natural detail. Okay, so things like dust, things like smudges, things like scratches, wood chips, anything like that. Okay, the easiest one to do. The easiest thing to do, first of all, okay, is use some of the nodes inside here. Specifically, if you go into the geometry node and get a color ramp, okay, this pointiness value, and that's why I left the subdivision still onto you. Basically, it isolates. If we go and pull this up, it isolates sharper edges, as you can see over there. Okay, now obviously this is different for each object, and is very dependent on the geometry itself. So for instance there it's not working, it's working a bit over there, but not on all the objects collectively. And that's simply because some have got subdivisions on and others don't. So if we turn the subdivisions back on, you'll see it will start working again. So ideally don't turn them off there when you guys are working, because obviously that makes it a nightmare. If you do want to turn them all off while you're working, just turn off, turn on simplify, and just limit it here to be 0. Okay. So it just makes it easier. Otherwise, it's kind of working against you while you're busy shading. Okay, so I see it wasn't all of them. Mirror first, then everything else. Just with regard to that, just the order of these. So why I'm saying mirror before everything else. If you think about the fact that if you mirror, completely lost my train of thought. Never mind. Okay, so let's jump back here. Okay, so there you can see you can very easily get the edges of things. Okay, so let's, and if they're bigger on some and others, that's okay. Nothing's ever going to be exactly the same. However, it does mean you can add some. See, that would actually refine it a little bit. If you're adding some points, it's really not going to make such a difference to your render times. So if it's really just, or even better, you can go and adjust the bevel modifier, or give it one, if that's the case. So let's move that into our render tab. And let's just see what's going on here first of all, not that one. No. Ooh, what happened there? That was weird. Okay, so this. Oh, I see, the bevel was actually beveled in. Oops. Okay, not the end of the world. Well, ignore that. Rather don't make your bevels beveled. rather use the modifier. It will definitely render faster. Okay, but regardless, there we have the edges. Okay, so the first thing that we can do is we can use that and go and alter the color of our wood. So we can take a color, mix RGB, take that as the second input, or actually the driving force of the factor. Take the first color into there and that into your base color. Okay, and then what that's going to do is basically go and use the black and white values to say the black values use the first input, the white values use the second input. So here we can make this just a slightly more natural color. And then if you want that more or less, well, what's going on there? Let's just give this one new UVs as well. That one doesn't like that at all. This is breaking its UV. Why though? It shouldn't. Okay, well, it's very strange. It is partially thanks to, well, let's just ignore it for now. We'll come back to that. Anyway, so if you want that less, then you can just change the value of the white over there to make it less. Okay, and already that will help. Okay, but then we can take that information and add it in other places as well. So for instance, you can take another mixology node, and over here, let's drop it in somewhere over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add it on top of our roughness. Okay, so if that's our roughness, and we add it on top of our roughness, then we basically going to get rougher edges over there, and add it specifically. Add. Okay, then the edges are going to be rougher. Okay, which is also more, makes sense if the edges are a little bit lighter than others if they have been worn or whatever. We can then go and mix that also with, you know, some noise so that's not everywhere on the edges. So for instance, we basically then want a texture noise, also a color ramp, take that into there, see what that does, and this I would then, that needs to be from the UV. Okay, this I would set to be constant. Okay, and then more detail. Okay, now basically we're going to multiply this on top of our noise, on top of our edges. So the black parts are going to cancel out some of these edges. So if we go and say text mix RGB and do that and say multiply, okay, you'll see that in places now we don't have noise. Okay, so whatever we do over here, if we want less black spots, then we obviously just drag that further down, which will allow more of it through. So that would be basically like a multiplier on, you know, how much noise you're actually getting rid of. Okay, and if we want smaller sections, we would increase that. Okay, so then that instead can be used over there as well as over there, and then you'll see the edges only in some places now, which is probably a little bit more realistic and an easy way to do it. Then other things like we can add scratches and that kind of thing as well. But before we do that, it's definitely gonna rain. Before we do that, I also want to go and just look at some other like cool cycles things we can use. What I'm also going to do is over here, I'm not going to have that be constant just because you can see it's cutting off rather quickly. So it's fading out of there and then just stopping. So here I'm just going to set this back to linear and just have a very sharp, not very sharp blend, but a sharpish blend, which will then fade out in that direction as well. So it's a little less obvious. Okay, so over there it's pretty cool. I mean, doing something like this, you can really spend a lot of time. Other things we can do with the same geometry node. Put that over there. If we use a converter separate x, y, and z, okay, also one of those. I'm going to stop this video soon, I think, so I don't really to keep myself. Take the normal into there. Okay, then if you look at what that's doing, you're basically isolating a direction. Okay, so an x or a y or a z. Now the z one is what is nice to have, because obviously the one against gravity, which is all of these surfaces, they would, well, a lot of things would happen to them specifically, like things would land on them more, things would spill on them more, dust would lie there more, which makes it a very cool thing to be able to control, or at least implement, not control so much. So I don't think this is really good. We don't want to lose any of that. Okay, so if we take that, for instance, okay, and then let's see if we have a dust texture anywhere that we can use. Okay, so here I've got some dust. Okay, now granted, this is also a very fine detail, which we will look and see on this specific asset, but as a technique, it's really nifty to know about. Okay, so there we have some dust. Okay, so I think Yaku used this in some of his stuff as well, or a similar thing at least. So dust. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically use that and this dust together. Okay, so if we go the dust, we can also just get its UVs from, okay, then a color, mix OTB, and basically say where the white areas are, we want dust to be. So basically we're going to I'm not sure if I need to invert this or not. Yeah, okay, let's say where the black areas are, the dust to be, because no. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the next step. My brain's not that fast. So basically then we can set the black areas, we multiply on top of that so that it masks those out and only keeps the white parts of it. So we take that, and we set that to multiply, and then we get that. Okay, so there we get all of the dust on top of our thing. Okay, so here also we can scale that up a little bit. It's end of days. Okay, then using that, okay, we can then go and blend between another material. So if we go and then say add a diffuse material, okay, add a mix shader, put that in there, put that in there, and use this over here to drive that. Okay, we get that, which is totally wrong. So we just need to switch those around. Okay, now, even though it's subtle, but you'll see now I've got these little bits over there, and it'll also make that a more dusty color, so the color of dead skin cells, which is disgusting. Okay, and there you've got that, and it's only on the upper surfaces, so it's subtle. Okay, let me just close this window quickly.